National Commander Parsetich, National Adjutant Jesnowski, distinguished guests and delegates. I'm honored once again to be with you here at the National Convention to report on the activities and accomplishments of DAV's national service and legislative programs over the past year. Since we last convened in Orlando, DAV has had another stellar year, fighting to secure benefits and health care for our nation's veterans, their families, and survivors. Despite the bitter partisan divide in our politics, making it increasingly difficult to get meaningful legislation passed in our nation's capital. You know, they call Atlantic City America's playground. If that's the case, then Washington should be known as America's daycare. I say that because I once heard that politicians are like diapers. They need to be changed often and usually for the same reason. But despite all the political turmoil in our nation's capital, DAV's legislative efforts, thanks to your advocacy efforts, resulted in the historic passage of the Honoring Our Pact Act, which was signed into law the day after last year's National Convention adjourned. Commander, I'm sure you remember the first day on the job. Now, I don't need to tell everybody else in the audience, but I spent my first day on the job filling out endless stacks of HR paperwork, not flying to DC to meet the president, the VA secretary, members of the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It was truly a momentous occasion, getting to watch history being made as millions of veterans from all generations became eligible for VA's life-changing benefits and health care. But let me just break it to our new line officers now. Whoever gets elected on Tuesday isn't going to the White House on Wednesday. Don't take it personal. The PACT Act was truly a landmark bill, the culmination of more than a decade of advocacy by DAV, dating back to 2007, when Chief of Communications and Outreach Officer Dan Clare, he was deployed at the time in Iraq as an Air Force Public Affairs Specialist, and he shared the all-important memo on the dangers of burn pits with the media. So we've been at the forefront of military toxic exposures from day one, and we're going to continue leading the charge in the years and coming months ahead. As you heard the Secretary outline yesterday, implementing the new law is no small undertaking. More than 800,000 PACT Act claims have now been filed through the first half of this year. That's a significant influx of claims in a relatively short amount of time, which is why DAV will have to hold Congress accountable for providing VA the proper funding and resources that it needs to fully and faithfully implement the law. Our nation's veterans deserve no less. Now, let me take this opportunity to remind everyone what's happening. This coming Wednesday is the deadline for filing PACT Act-related claims in order to guarantee the earliest possible effective date. So if you think you may be eligible for benefits based on toxic exposures by the PACT Act, please be sure to visit the DAV Claims Processing Office in Avalon Rooms 8 and 9 on the second floor of the Conference Center and talk to one of our national service officers. Now, as remarkable as the PACT Act is, there are still gaps that need to be addressed. In the coming year, DAV will continue to advocate for legislation to eliminate the requirement for radiation dose estimates for veterans made ill by exposure to radiological materials during their service. We're also going to focus on the expansion of benefits to veterans who served in Karshi-Khanabad Air Base, nicknamed K2 in Uzbekistan, where service members were exposed to residuals of chemical weapons, radioactive depleted uranium, jet fuel, among nearly 400 other compounds. Many among us may have never heard of K2, likely due to where it is and the limited time our forces were stationed there. But toxins don't care about time or location, just ask those who serve here at home.
I was 17 when I signed up, and I turned 18 in boot camp. Well, I was in about the 8th grade in school, and I was always fascinated with the military. And we had a Marine visiting that day in his dress blues, and I saw it. And I said, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. And the more I talked about it, my family members, oh, you're not tough enough. You're not tough enough. So I made sure I showed them I was tough enough. We weren't there on a combat mission at all, even though it turned into one. Bladder cancer. I didn't find out about it until I was already a stage 4. Just as soon as I found out, I made a mention, and Don heard, and he said, you know, that's tied in with that contaminated water. You should do something. I said, I don't know where to start. He said, you start with me.
It lifted so much off of me that it's unreal what it really has done, because I couldn't have handled it without it. DAV they're more than just a name or an acronym. It's people that have been there and been through it and have gotten the background to understand how to do it.
There are so many more out there that are fighting to get help that they desperately need, but they're not getting it. I would tell them you deserved it the minute you put that uniform on.
Sadly, there are countless others out there facing the same grim realities as these is. While Keith may not have died in combat, veterans like him still made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Rest assured, we will not give up this fight until every veteran receives the toxic exposure benefits they've earned. Nor will we waver in the efforts to secure benefits for the survivors of those who serve. This past year, the National Legislative Team has been hard at work on Capitol Hill, advocating for multiple pieces of legislation to extend benefits for dependents and survivors. Notably, your advocacy resulted in 50,000 emails being sent to Congress through the Commanders Action Network for 2 critical bills, the Caring for Survivors Act and the Love Lives On Act. With your continued support, I hope to report at our next convention that both of these bills have been signed into law. And as always, translating the federal laws into tangible benefits for veterans and survivors is the job of DAV's National Service Program, which continues to be the gold standard among all veteran service organizations. helping hundreds of thousands of veterans seeking VA benefits each year. With over 3,700 DAV accredited or certified service officers, led by our national, transition, department, and chapter service officers, DAV last year took over 2.4 million actions to help veterans and their families. All told, the veterans and survivors represented by DAV obtained more than $26.4 billion in benefits as reported by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Benjamin Franklin once said, and I quote, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best dividends," end quote. Which is why we're continuing to ensure DAV service officers are the best trained, best equipped to assist veterans with their claims. In fact, the American Council on Education now awards 15 college credits to those who successfully complete the DAV NSO Structured and Continued Training Program. It's why lawmakers in Congress, policymakers at the VA regularly refer veterans to DAV for assistance with their claims. It's also why more than 1.1 million veterans and survivors choose DAV to represent them before the Department of Veterans Affairs. I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. When it comes to helping veterans secure their benefits, DAV remains second to none. In fact, our service officers are often the first to have contact with a veteran or a family member. So building public awareness is essential to fulfilling our mission. That's why at free information seminars conducted across the country, we continue to educate veterans, their family members on the benefits and services they may be eligible to receive. Last year, DAV held 400 information seminars with nearly 13,000 attendees, and will continue on that same trajectory in 2023 to make sure that we leave no veteran or family member, survivor, or caregiver behind. We're also continuing to expand our presence on the internet and through social networks, constantly looking to find innovative ways to support veterans. In our redesigned website, DAV has provided veterans easy access to a myriad of tools to help educate them on the disability claims process. One tool we've recently implemented is our disability rating calculator, which shows users how the VA combines ratings when veterans has multiple disabilities, which, as you know, is quite common. By providing easy access to tools and information about the claims process, we hope to encourage more veterans to come to us for assistance in securing all the benefits they've earned through their military service. The former governor of California, who I believe you may have seen in a movie or two, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger said, and I quote, "Help others and give something back. I guarantee you will discover that while public service improves the lives and the world around you, its greatest reward is the enrichment and new meaning it will bring to your own life," end quote. Nothing illustrates that point better than DAV's disaster relief program, which continues to make a difference for those whose lives have been upended by hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, fires, and other disasters. In 2022, DAV provided approximately $2.1 million and nearly 1,000 comfort kits and supply kits to family members throughout 15 states, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia. Veterans like Julie Parks.
The first thing I saw was my dad's American flag in the rubble. I am Julie Parks. I am a Navy veteran. I survived Hurricane Ian. When I left my house, I wasn't thinking that I was never going back. And then all of a sudden, reality sunk in that I no longer have a place to go home to. I went to the shelter And when I got there, when I saw the sign that said DAV, it made me feel safe. And it made me feel like I wasn't alone. They also cut me a check right on the spot. It was immediate help. And no one else had anything like that. They told me that their help for me wasn't stopping there and that I would be okay. I can't thank them enough.
While we wish these disasters would stop, our care and support when they happen will not. I'm proud to say that since 1968, more than $19.5 million has been dispersed as a result of our disaster relief efforts. Caring for our fellow veterans is at the core of what DAV does. We honor and support those family members who care for their injured, ill, and disabled veterans. As most of you know, when Congress created the Comprehensive Caregiver Program over a decade ago, it too was limited to post-9/11 veterans. In 2017, DAV launched the Unsung Heroes Initiative to change that law so that seriously disabled veterans from all eras will be eligible for the program. Thanks to our efforts, that became a reality last October when caregivers for veterans who served before 9/11 became eligible to apply for the Comprehensive Caregiver Assistance Program. Unfortunately, the new regulations that VA promulgated was for this expansion actually tightened up the eligibility criteria. It threatened to kick out thousands of caregivers already in the program, and it made actually getting access to the program significantly harder for those pre-9/11 veterans. As a result of public outcry from DAV and other advocates, thousands of veterans, their caregivers, VA paused the implementation of the new regulations, stopped discharging veterans from the program, and they began developing new eligibility program rules to replace the ones that had failed. While we've not yet seen the revised caregiver eligibility criteria, we're hopeful they will ultimately fix the issues that veterans and their caregivers have encountered. It has been a difficult fight. But if they don't, let me assure you that we won't give up until they do. DAV will also continue fighting to ensure that women veterans, the fastest segment of the veterans population, expanding more than 19%, are now eligible to access VA healthcare benefits, including world-class gender-specific care. We have to keep that fight up. And during the last Congress, our advocacy efforts led to the passage of a number of new laws, including the landmark Deborah Simpson Act, the Dr. Kate Hendricks Thomas Service Act, and the Protecting Moms Who Serve Act, and last, the MAMO Act. Each and every one of these victories can trace their origin back to DAV's 2014 Women Veterans Report, The Long Journey Home, which shined a light on the many challenges women face as they leave military service. It's also provided a roadmap for legislative action. Our 2018 follow-up report, The Journey Ahead, offered additional recommendations and kept the pressure on lawmakers to do the right thing by our sisters at arms. I'm pleased to announce that DAV will be releasing a third report later this fall called The Journey to Mental Wellness, which will focus on the unique mental health issues that women veterans face. We're incredibly excited for this new report and hope that each of you will read it and use its findings when we advocate for our women veterans. We are already working with the Senate and the House Veterans Affairs Committees to draft new legislation that will address shortfalls in VA's mental health programs and their services for women veterans. Together we can, and we must, finally close these gaps that too many women veterans have already fallen through. Many in this room know all too well that even after the guns go silent, the battles continue for many who witnessed the ravages of war. These invisible wounds can take years to manifest, and without proper interventions, can last a lifetime, often ending up as another tragedy of war. While it's been heartening to see the veteran suicide rate dip somewhat over the past few years, the only acceptable number is 0. That's why DAV continues pushing for policies and legislation that work toward making that goal a reality. In fact, at our annual National Midwinter Conference in Washington, our own national commander revealed something that many of us had not known.
I don't have any John Wayne stories from my time in theater, and fortunately I didn't experience any physical injuries. But for many years, I couldn't shake the sounds of the enemy rockets whistling past my post, and I brought back with me the memories of those who lost their lives over there. I was honorably discharged in 1972 and carried the burden of surviving Vietnam for decades until 2009, when I woke up in an intensive care unit. That's because after 59 years on this beautiful earth, I no longer saw my life as being valuable. I saw myself as an unworthy burden to those around me, and I attempted to end it all. Mr. Chairman, I sit before you today with the humble admission that I've never been so happy or so fortunate to have failed at something. So from personal experience, I know just how important veterans' access to mental health services are. DAV appreciates Congress's continued attention to this issue and the significant resources provided to support the VA's inclusive array of specialized mental health programs and services. As these needs continue to grow, it's crucial that Congress provide the VA with all the mental health resources, staffing, and support necessary to prevent veteran suicide.
Commander, I've been a part of DAV for 30 years, and I've got to tell you, that's one of the bravest moments I've ever witnessed in Washington, D.C. It was the actual personification of leadership, and we're proud to have you at the helm of this organization, Joe. Thank you again. We're also proud of our national legislative team in D.C., which is unparalleled in the veterans advocacy arena. That's because behind them are all of you. They're the bark, you're the bite. The grassroots advocacy of our members plays a pivotal role in how we engage with lawmakers, and a major part of that is your participation in the DAV CAN. The CAN is Commanders Action Network. It's one thing for our legislative team to go to a meeting on the Hill with some talking points. It's quite another to be able to drop 10, 20, 30,000 emails on someone's desk. In fact, as of July, our members have sent out over 500,000 emails to Congress advocating for dozens of life-changing veterans' health care and benefit bills. That's 500,000 emails in just over 6 months. Amazing. To put that incredible statistic into perspective, DAV last year sent out 439,000 emails to Congress in all of 2022, and 500,000 in just the first 6 months. Give yourselves another round of applause for that. And for those of you sitting out there that's not yet a part of the Commanders Action Network, signing up is easy. Just go to davcan.org and click Sign Up in the top right corner. That's davcan.org. It's quick, it's easy, and it's important. And if you don't do it, I'm going to have Al LaBelle hound you until you do. He's already on the job. Finally, I wanted to share with you that our Washington headquarters is moving to a new location, just steps away from the VA and the White House. We expect to be in the space later this year. The move will create greater efficiency for the staff, but rest assured the mission inside the new Washington headquarters will remain the same. Service and advocacy on behalf of our nation's veterans, that will never change. As you see up on the renderings on the screen, you'll notice the quotes that will serve us daily as reminders of our mission. Like this one from former VA Secretary and past Executive Director of DAV's National Service and Legislative Headquarters, Jesse Brown, who said, "America has a solemn obligation to ensure that the men and women who have served and sacrificed for this country and the cause of freedom will never be forgotten or neglected." Our veterans need us, and indeed, we have a sacred obligation to keep America's promise to them. And working together, that's exactly what we'll continue to do. Thank you. May God continue to bless DAV, the men and women who have served our great nation, their families, survivors, caregivers, and of course, this wonderful country of ours, the United States of America. Commander, that completes my report.